welcome to Glasscast, a podcast of the National Glass Association and Glass Magazine. I am your host, Katie Devlin. I'm here with my terrific colleague and co-host, Sarah Neiswanger. And in today's podcast, we are talking about the state of modern glass fabrication. We've got Michael Spellman, the founder and owner of IGE Glass. Michael, welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. Very nice to see Sarah and you, of course. You and I go way back to a great interview back in the 2005 or 6 or something, whenever you first started, which I fondly remember.
In prep for this call, I was searching my memory to think about when we first met, and I do think it was right when I joined. So we go back a couple decades now, and you've been incredibly welcoming, whether I've been dropping by your booth at GlassBuild or in Italy at Vitrum or even Germany at GlassTech. So yeah, I'm sure, you and I know each other well. You and Sarah go back to the Ghana days, right?
That's right. And what Sarah and I were just talking about before we got on was the name different back in those days, or was it GlassBuild?
Way back before my time, and I think yours too, Sarah, it was just the NGA show. Yeah, GlassBuild celebrated the 20th anniversary a couple of years ago. So
yeah, well, great. Well, I'm very pleased to be on, and I thank you, ladies in the NGA, for having me on.
Oh, we're delighted. So, part of the reason we're recording this podcast is we're in advance of NGA's brand new event for glass fabricators, GFAB, the NGA Glass Fabricator Conference. It's coming to Chicago June 14th through 17th. IGE will be at GFAB. We'll be focusing on factory automation, collaboration between suppliers and customers. GFAB really comes out of NGA's two previous events for the glass fabricators. Our NGA Glass Conference, that's our event for our technical and advocacy committees, but also GPAD, the Glass Processing Automation Days. And I know you were a big player in GPAD going back to when that was formed by Fenatech back in the day. And all of the conversations around these events and what we'll be bringing to GFAB as well is, thinking about the needs of today's glass factory. So let's, kind of set the stage there. Can you give our listeners a sense of the modern glass fabrication plant? What does it look like? The scale of it, the materials that are moving through, and why is it more complex than most people outside of the industry might imagine?
Wow, that part was the most important, more complex than most people could imagine. Well, first of all, the glass fabricator is more of a job shop in the United States, meaning everything's onesie, twosies, every different thicknesses, different shapes, different coatings, etc. And you're also moving it to several locations. And first, the material is very fragile and it's very dangerous. It's very heavy at times. It's very expensive, and it's very important to fabricate it in more of a flow fashion than anything else. So I'm glad you brought up complex, because it is quite complex, especially with all the different stops, edging, washing, well, starting with cutting, drilling, milling, washing, tempering, and on into insulated glass and many more things. Some of my friends in the industry say there's no such thing as a good day in glass fabrication. It's just a degree of how bad it was. So I hate to think of it that way, but it also motivates me to keep thinking of better ways of doing things for the customers that I've been calling on for over 40 years now. So it's become a real passion for IGE to look for ways of taking these complex problems and one at a time, increasing the flow, increasing automation, which automatically increases safety, but doing it with flow and return on investment as the main goal. So automation's great. It looks great. Robots look great. It's all fancy, shiny stuff, but if it doesn't really fit what you're doing, it's just wasting your money and your space. The best way to look at a modern factory, which should be today and is not there yet, after understanding what I just said, that it's more of a vision. It's that flow that really, really matters in the future of glass fabrication, in my opinion. So yes, the real modern factory is going to be about flow, and it has to be a return on investment. We have to throw safety in there, but that's the key word is flow.
The one thing I want to go back to, you were talking about all of the different processes that these fabricators are doing on the floor, and we're doing that today. Glass has always been a heavy, fragile material, but now it's also big and getting bigger. Can you talk a little bit about the physical reality, like, of our product? How does that shape everything else about how a plant has to be designed and operated, from the equipment you choose to how you move that product through that entire process, through each stage?
Yeah, I think that the best way for me to answer that is to say, first of all, once you're dealing with jumbo glass, it's a whole nother ballgame. It's almost a whole nother fabrication shop. So, Katie, when you look at jumbo glass, which is 130 inches by 204, and in Europe it's 240, you're looking at different equipment. You're not going to be able to use the average type machines that have been used for decades in glass fabrication. I almost look at it as it should be a separate factory. Almost needs to be its own factory. That's my opinion, of course. I invite people to debate me on that, but I think most people will agree. So it is another world, and it is getting bigger and bigger, and the heavier it gets, the less forgiving it is. The glass isn't really very forgiving anyway, but I think you know what I mean on that. And again, the goal, even with the large glass, is fewer touches, much fewer movements, and a much safer flow. So, yeah, heavy glass is going to make you pay attention to all the things that really truly matter in order to run a profitable, safe operation.
So you've brought up the concept of flow, kind of being one of the key things to keeping the machine running, literally and figuratively. So what about bottlenecks when those come up? You've mentioned, those can become pretty visible now, that impact the flow. So what are you actually looking for when that happens? Or what does a balanced flow or operation look like versus one that has hiccups in it?
Okay, so great question. 10 years ago, I would look for bottlenecks. Today, I'm looking for systems. So in other words, 10 years ago, I'd go and see a fabricator friend of mine and want to help any way I could. And I would walk into a plant and I could sense where the bottlenecks were pretty quickly. And then if I had a solution for that bottleneck, and for most cases I did, it would cause another bottleneck. And that kept us in business. So next time we came back, we'd work on that next bottleneck. Today, I look more at a factory as a systems and not as machines. A system that flows, a system that provides safety, and a system that improves your return on investment, makes you money. Because no matter what you're going to come up with, or somebody else is going to come up with, one thing they don't talk about very often is return on investment. And I really believe that it's more systems oriented to think rather than per machine. And if there are machines and you are focused on machines, if the machine's not making any money, you got to get rid of that machine. It's not staying. If it's not paying, it's not staying. And this is what I say all the time to my friends out there in the glass fabrication world. Get that off the floor, and let's put something on there that will allow a little better flow and higher return on investment.
So I want to dig in a little bit more there, Michael. So you've identified throughput and ROI. Those are metrics that matter most today for fabrication.
To me, in my opinion, my humble opinion, or maybe not so humble opinion. But yeah, these are things that really matter. So I look at things differently today than I did 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I looked at things differently than 10 years prior. But for what I really like to make as a point today, when you're making an investment and how things have changed, you really have to look at the flow of a glass fabrication, the safety, the movement of this very fragile, dangerous, high cost material that we're moving around, and do the best you can to have a smoother flow. And when I walk into a factory, I can usually get that feel right away. And like I said, years ago, I would look for the bottlenecks. Today, I kind of walk around and I think about three things at the same time. I think about the people. I look at the people and kind of pick up the vibe of the fabrication plant. And believe me, they are all different. And I sometimes pick up a special vibe where everybody seems to know what they're doing, is calm, is going about their day, smile on the face, things like that. You can tell the friction, but not just from people if you're in a difficult fabrication plant, but friction from the flow and even the machinery. So I'm looking for smooth flow, happy employees, safe environment. And these are the things I'm focused on in my 70s that I wasn't focused on in my 30s and 40s. It's really interesting how the industry is developing towards what I've always wanted and always strived for. And it's great to be a part of it right now.
That's a terrific sentiment. I might spin off that for just a moment and revisit something you said earlier, speaking about how your time and what you look for has evolved over your years, and how you have driven IGE to continue to innovate to respond to some of those needs from fabricators. If you could pinpoint, what you would feel one of your greatest accomplishments are, one of your greatest innovations has been, or what you're proudest of the change, what does anything come to mind?
There's 100 machines that come to mind, and 100 experiences that come to mind. I've been very fortunate. I spend an enormous amount of my year researching new solutions. I've been credited with being the first in bringing a lot of technology into the industry, going back into 1978, believe it or not, with a machine called the Vismatic by a company called Zanetti that's no longer around. Some of the old folks that out there listening will know what I'm talking about. That wasn't a very expensive machine at the time. It was about $20,000, but it made my customers a ton of money. They got a return on the value sometimes in a week. It was a shape edging machine, beveling machine, and it required a really good employee to learn it, all the way up to the introduction of vacuum insulated glass, which I brought here 14 years ago, 15, well, probably 16 or 17 now, actually, which is through my sister company, VIG Technologies. Very proud of that. I'm extremely proud of the water filtration that we brought. We created an ecosystem. And if you look at the website at IGSolutions.com, you'll see the ecosystem is a round circle like the Earth. And at the very top is a company that we work with for, I don't know, 15, 18 years called VitroSep. Super proud of that one. And VitroSep is for the water filtration. Is no moving parts. The maintenance is almost zero. You measure it in minutes, not hours or weekends or days. Super proud of that one. And as you go around my entire ecosystem that you'll see that we put up on the website, each and every one of those is serving a purpose to get to the goal. And the goal, of course, is that smooth flow and tremendous return on investment. We've been very lucky at IGE. We're known as the technology leader. I think in every single area of glass fabrication, we have brought innovation. For example, many, many years ago, we brought in true convection for the furnaces. We've been promoting very strongly thermoplastic spacer. We were the first to bring in a drilling and milling machine that could make the life of the shower door people much more profitable and much more enjoyable to produce. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I don't want to sound too braggadocious, but in every area of glass fabrication, we have innovated it. And we is a team, the team at IGE, which, by the way, you know most of my team anyway. We've got Manny now at 25 years. We have Jeff. He's at 20 years. Raul's at 20 years. And at the GFAB, we're going to have a party for 5 people in the crew that have made it more than 20 years putting up with me, including my wife, who's put up with me for 30.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just glad GFAB can provide the backdrop for that celebration, and we want to help you celebrate for sure.
Well, that GFAB is really, really exciting for us. It really is because, and I thank you for mentioning GPAD because I go back with those wonderful people from Fenatech, and we work side by side because software is so critically important to the goal. And we're more machine people that have had to learn a lot about software and are fascinated by the advances in the software. And it was a great, great bunch of years. And having you folks take it over is so great. I remember when I first got the phone call that was the plan. I was really very, very happy with that, and felt that's what was needed to really build this idea of a get together with glass fabricators that know all the things I'm talking about, and get together with them and discuss problems and solutions and just be about the glass fabricator. Because see, all the other meetings, they're either meetings about codes or they're shows that have aluminum people that have, all sorts of other things in it, diluting it. This GFAB is focused on the fabricator, and it just validates a lot of us, especially me, especially my employees and my friends and my fabricator customers. It validates us as a very serious group within this huge glass industry, or which not so huge glass industry, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And we're all going to be together and be able to share stories and hear presentations from various suppliers of equipment and solutions. And I'm super excited about it. And I love Chicago too, by the way. So that's great. That makes it better.
Yeah, we're excited now, and I appreciate your longevity with this. I think what we talked to a lot of fabricators in trying to craft this event, and you're right. We do need something that is focused on the glass fabricator and focused on the needs throughout the company, and that's a lot. You've got your executive level, and we're trying to address that with sort of higher level conversations, but also the folks who are making buying decisions, and these are not small investments for companies. They really have to be thoughtful, and the trust that can be built with bringing suppliers together with their fabricators. Bringing supplier partners. Really, that's so huge for us and for the industry at large. I know one thing that you mentioned. Sarah, did you want to chat through safety a little bit? You mentioned that, Michael, but yeah, Sarah, did you want to frame that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions is, the balance. We work with a lot of companies that want a safety culture, versus how it is built into, to your point, how the system is designed, the flow. So how do you approach safety when it comes to training and culture versus the system?
Well,
that makes sense.
I really appreciate that question, because the simple answer, and then I'd like to talk a little more about it. The simple answer is the more automated that you get, correctly automated, not just bringing in a robot and saying, okay, automated that. So it's a little bit more complex than that, but automation leads naturally to safety. So every time you touch the glass, it's costing money, it's costing labor, it's slowing a process down, it's creating an environment that could be dangerous. So by automating either step by step, which is what I believe is the best way to do it, you're creating naturally a safer environment with better flow. So that's how to answer that one. The fabricators are under a lot of stress with safety, and they've been amazing in this country. What I've seen in other countries, I don't even want to tell you. Give you a little hint. I saw somebody welding without glasses recently. But the safety in the United States and Canada, the fabricators are very conscious of safety, which makes me proud. But safety is one of the benefits you get from automation, is what I guess I'm trying to say. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a great result of automation.
Yeah, that's good. It is a result. You know, got to look at these things always as what's the goal,
Yeah.
because there's no one, magic wand that you can walk around with and improve a glass fabrication plant. You can walk a glass fabrication plant and look for the pain points, and that's one of the first things I recommend that we do when I'm working with a fabricator. Also, define very closely what the goal is. Why am I here? Why are we talking? What do we really want to improve? And let's take a look. So we have solutions from very inexpensive hydraulic pneumatic manipulators through Addis, an Italian company that we've been with forever, all the way up to multi-million-dollar solutions. So, not one thing fits everybody. Again, because it's a job shop, they're all custom. Everybody's doing something a little different. You really need to take a step-by-step approach, and you need to find small to large solutions for getting to the goal of a better flow, better return on investment, and more safe environment. And it's not about getting rid of people. It's really not about that. I thought it was years ago, but it's not. And what it's really about is getting a much better flow through the fabrication shop, getting the best people. You don't need a lot of people. As you get more automated, whether it's step by step or a group by group, you're freeing up jobs. True. But you can take your good people, pay them more, give them more responsibility. And I think that's the natural evolution that we're going to see. So we are going to see less people, but we're still going to see very important people. Your payroll probably won't go down, but you'll be working with maybe more professional people. And that is part of the goal, too, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So, and Katie, do you want to comment on the labor versus large glass that you talked about earlier?
Well, I think all of that, it just keeps coming back to, you've said flow, flow many times, interconnectivity. And we started the conversation talking about what does the modern glass factory look like? And
yeah, you're just missing one thing, Katie. Return on investment, remember?
Mm-hmm.
So and ROI.
Because if we're not making any money, what are we doing here? See, so we got flow, we got safety, we have return on investment, and that all gets wrapped up into stages of automation.
Well, we've touched on GFAB a bit already, but as kind of maybe some parting words here as we wrap up, why should people attend GFAB in your opinion?
Well, first of all, they should give thanks to the NGA for creating this. The fabricator, as I said earlier, is one that is often overlooked. It's not focused on. When you go to a glass show, it's not just for the fabricator. From glass, you see metal machines there. You see all kinds of other machines there. The glass fabricator is extremely important in the general ecosystem of the glass industry, and this is the only true conference focused on just the glass fabricator. So GFAB to me is just a wonderful occasion. I hope people are promoting it every day, everywhere I go, trying to get not just the decision makers there, but the actual production people and maintenance managers if possible, because the maintenance managers are so important in glass fabrication. I sure hope my friends invite their maintenance managers as well. And it should be tremendously successful. I've already taken a look at who's going, and I'm thrilled already. It is going to be the place to go. It is going to totally be the place to go for the glass fabricators in the future. And I am so confident. I can see so clearly in my crystal ball that this is the way to go, and it will be very, very beneficial. It also helps the fabricator keep up with what's really going on, because the glass fabricator's got a lot to think about. being a supplier to the glass fabricators, my job is to think about what's going to make their life better. And my competitors, some of them do the same. So to have us all meet and discuss these things and prove out points in general with open discussions as well is so beneficial. It's just great, fabulous. Got to do it.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thanks so much for joining Sarah and I on GlassCast. Again, we've been chatting with Michael Spellman, the founder and CEO of IGE. Great to see you, and we will see you and celebrate the longevity of your team in Chicago.
It's got to be terrific.
Good. All right. Well, we will see you there. Thanks so much. And yeah, thanks for joining us on GlassCast.
Well, thank you.